Hello, welcome back to Snugglewood, young Dreamlynx. My name is Arin. Snuggle down into your coziest quilt and let tonight's calming tale and soothing sounds relieve you of any worries and guide you towards a deep, restful night's sleep under these beautiful stars above. And so our story begins in a place called Snuggleton, and the sleepy giant tale of Midnight Sky Campout. Under the endless capture of the midnight sky, the campout had begun in earnest. A serene meadow surrounded by towering ancient oaks became the chosen gathering spot for the sleepy giant tales. A nightly tradition that summoned young and old alike from the villages. This meadow, untouched by time, whispered stories of generations who had gazed at the same cosmic wonder, and tonight was no different. The fire crackled brightly at the heart of the circle, sending spirals of warmth radiating outward. Its golden light mixed with the silver glow of the full moon, crowning the scene above. Stars formed intricate constellations, winking promises of mystery and adventure. One by one, they began to twinkle vividly, as if competing for attention. Shooting stars occasionally streaked across, leaving fleeting trails that curved and arched like celestial brushstrokes. Among the attendees, little giants nestled in layers of thick, soft blankets that shielded them from the crisp night air. The giants and elders surrounded the youngsters, creating a cocoon of comfort as they prepared for the telling of tales. From the horizon, a rolling breeze carried the earthy scent of pine and wildflowers, easing minds into the calm rhythm of the night. It was a moment suspended, where the concerns of everyday life seemed to dissolve under the mesmerizing canopy above. The storyteller for the evening, a figure clad in deep blue robes, adorned with silver star embroidery, began weaving tales as if pulling threads from the very night sky. The fire danced in sync with the rhythm of the story, its light and shadow casting shapes against the surrounding oaks, turning them into silent spectators of the unfolding narrative. A sense of unity, born of tradition, hung over those gathered, tying everyone to each other and to the essence of the stories being shared. The story commenced with a description of the farthest corners of the sky, a place where stars were born and played before embarking on their final, radiant journeys. The storyteller painted a vivid picture of colossal floating seas of light, whispered into the expanse by ancient forces beyond human comprehension. Though unseen to the human eye, these places were teeming with vibrant colours and cosmic energy, the storyteller explained, woven with awe into every detail. The children, wide-eyed and entranced, imagined these heavenly realms, their minds filling with expansive worlds that transcended their everyday experiences. They could almost see them, envisioned in their collective dream state created by the storyteller's words. The story began to carry them further into imagination, unfurling layer upon layer of the unknown cosmos, as though uncovering a veil draped over a treasure. The tale turned to the adventures of celestial wanderers. These were not giants or dreamlynxes, but abstract ethereal beings tasked with guiding the movement of stars and planets. They travelled across the great voids with ease, leaving trails of light that spoke of their journeys. These wanderers would pass near Earth occasionally, their paths untraceable to dreamlynxes, yet their presence echoing upon the natural world. They would nudge the stars and dust gently enough to allow humans to sense their influence. A meteor shower here, or an odd alignment of planets there. The storyteller's words wound on, detailing how the wanderers maintained balance. With every new thread of the story, the sense of adventure deepened, drawing the listeners closer to the heart of the narrative. The audience could practically feel the pull of this celestial dance, one that mirrored life below the skies in its balance of chaos and order. And so the first half of the night passed, as the stars shifted imperceptibly across the ink-black heavens. The campfire's light dimmed slightly, its glow pulsing like the heartbeat of the evening. A hush of contentment swirled through everyone gathered as the story reached a momentary pause, giving room for quiet reflection. Beams from the moon, brighter than at any other point in the night, poured open through gaps in the trees. Then the tale took an unexpected turn, reaching deeper into the fabric of imagination. The storyteller began sharing the mysteries of hidden constellations, ones woven so intricately that even the most advanced stargazers could not glimpse their positions. These constellations existed because of secrets long forgotten, stories locked away within the greater mysteries of the skies. They spoke of immense interconnectivity, the way every living thing, moving star, and even the still void of space held meaning intertwined. What followed was an exploration of their names, tied to ancient guardians thought to live under the earth, their slumber extending for centuries. It was said that these guardians were the keepers of memories belonging to stars, catalogued in ways unknown to mortals. The guardians' presence linked the heavens above with the foundation supporting the land itself, embodying the unity of existence. The fire dimmed further as sleep began to creep into the camp, but none turned away from the flow of the story. Little Giant's eyes grew heavier, yet their focus remained as the storyteller described the rare moments when these hidden constellations became visible. Such events came as gifts, appearing only to dreamers whose imaginations could bridge the gap between what was seen and what remained unseen. Though speculative, it sparked within every listener an individual longing to witness this celestial phenomenon, to be part of an unbroken legacy stretching across untold eons. The campout seemed timeless now, caught between story and reality. Closing the narrative with delicate skill, the storyteller hinted at cycles of both stars and Dreamlynxes, connected in their progressions. Even as paths diverged, they would come full circle. This spiral of celestial movement mirrored the lives of all those gathered, amplifying the unshakable feeling that everyone there was part of something incomprehensibly vast but meaningful. When the story ended, silence accompanied its final echo. But that silence carried a palpable feeling of possibility. The campfire flickered low, yet its warmth was matched by the internal warmth of those present. Gazing upward, hearts and minds stayed tethered to the magnificent sprawl above, united by the tales shared beneath the midnight sky. Sleep descended slowly, one by one, leaving only a sense of shared awe under the endless stars. The campfire hissed softly, its final remnants casting brief shadows on the worn faces of the campers who had gathered to share their stories. The night embraced them fully now, a deep indigo blanket speckled with countless stars, each like a tiny lantern suspended in the infinite expanse. Though sleep had taken most, several remained, their eyes reflecting muddled thoughts or quiet contemplation. Moments like these had a strange way of stitching people together in ways that no amount of shared history or familiarity could achieve. The stars above them didn't judge, didn't question, only listened. The campfire had long dwindled to a glowing bed of ember sparks, its warmth fading into the coolness of the night. A low hum of wind stirred the grass, carrying with it the earthy scents of pine and damp soil. The river nearby murmured softly to itself, as if narrating an ancient tale known only to its flowing waters. The stillness of the night wasn't silence, but rather the symphony of a world living in harmony under the sky. Crickets chirped in rhythmic patterns, and the occasional rustle of leaves hinted at unseen creatures moving through the shadows. Among the scattered shapes, wrapped in blankets and curled in quiet repose, Emma stirred slightly. She wasn't completely asleep, but rather lingering in that hazy boundary between dreams and wakefulness, letting her mind wander into the endless depths of her thoughts. The weight of the sky seemed tangible tonight, pressing down on the small gathering, not in an oppressive way, but as a gentle reminder of how tiny they all were beneath such vastness. She traced the constellations with her eyes, trying to remember the stories they held. Heroes, monsters, lovers, each immortalized in those distant flickering lights. Nearby, Loganus lay on his back, eyes wide open, unblinking as they drank in the heavens. His chest rose and fell slowly, the calmness of someone unconcerned with sleep, while the others drifted into fleeting pockets of rest. He found himself unable to succumb. The stillness of the universe above seemed to ignite something restless within him. memories flickering like film reels in his mind. The stars made him wonder about the paths left untaken, the roads he hadn't travelled yet, and the stretches of horizon still waiting to be explored. He thought of home, of the people he'd left behind, and a dull ache nestled in his chest, though he couldn't tell if it was nostalgia or regret. The fire barely crackled, releasing a final spark that danced into the air before fading into the surrounding darkness. Sophia turned slightly, mumbling incoherent words in her sleep. Even in slumber, her face carried a subtle tension, as though her dreams were a continuation of whatever burdens she carried in her waking hours. Her fingers occasionally twitched against the fabric of her blanket, as if reaching for something intangible. Yet there was an undeniable peace in her posture, a kind of surrender that only came when surrounded by people who felt like home. High above, a meteor streaked across the horizon, a fleeting brushstroke of white light against the canvas of darkness. It brought a hush, unspoken but shared, among those still conscious enough to witness it. To the human eye, it was just a streak, a dazzling moment easily forgotten. But somewhere in its trajectory, it may have been a fragment of a star, a shard of a distant world, crossing through a realm it would never know, leaving behind a band of light as its only trace. The air carried a chill now, the kind that seeped through even the thickest layers and reminded everyone present of nature's indifference. Though the campfire had been their anchor hours before, it was now merely a memory of warmth, its ashes just about glowing under the moon's gaze. The stillness seemed to stretch endlessly, and in that timeless space, the knots of individual thoughts began to unravel themselves. The stars continued to peer down, winking knowingly at the transient lives they had watched over for millennia. A gentle mist began to roll in from the river, curling around the tree trunks and brushing against the scattered figures. It softened the edges of the world, muting the silhouettes of the forest and blurring them into gentle curves. The shifting mist gave the night an almost ethereal quality, as though reality had thinned, and at any moment the veil could lift to reveal another world nestled just behind the one they knew. Even the earth beneath them seemed full of vitality, with a magic that was too slow and too historic for any of them to fully comprehend. The ground absorbed their weight, cradled their exhaustion, and in return whispered secrets that none of them had the capacity to hear. The world wasn't asleep, even if most of its Dreamlynx inhabitants were. It merely carried on in its silent, tireless rhythm, a cosmic dance ongoing since time began. For those who remained awake, the veil between the self and the universe seemed thinner somehow. The boundaries between me and everything else dissolving into the ambient night. It was a feeling not quite describable in words, the recognition of being a part of something unimaginably large, combined with a quiet acceptance of one's own smallness. Across the clearing, an owl hooted, its low, mournful call echoing through the trees. A response came further away, softer, more distant. These nighttime watchers exchanged their cryptic messages, their language ancient and untouched by Dreamlynx ears. The camp members heard the calls, but did not understand. And yet, the sound wasn't alien. It resonated somewhere deep within, pulling almost forgotten threads of ancestral memory they didn't know they carried. Eventually, the dew began to cling more heavily to the tall grass, and the stars began their gradual retreat as the night aged toward dawn. The horizon softened into the lowest suggestions of light. A quiet promise whispered at the edge of the world. The forest seemed to sense the transition, still and attentive, waiting for the first bird to declare the start of a new day. Those who had stayed awake until these moments felt almost as though they were intruding on something sacred, their wandering thoughts stilled by the sheer quiet worship of Earth's awakening. One by one, the stars disappeared, their light dimmed not by the fading night, but by the unstoppable approach of the sun. The world hadn't changed, not really, but to those resting beneath the open sky, it had all felt different for a few fleeting hours. Whatever burdens they carried, fears they hid, or sorrows they bore seemed lighter now, if only for a moment. The night had absorbed their unspoken confessions, their uninformed questions, and left them with a shared serenity, a quiet thread connecting their lives in ways they'd likely never fully comprehend. The sun sent its first timid rays over the edge of the landscape, brushing against the treetops and slowly melting the mist. The gentle warmth began to stir the sleepers, beckoning them back into wakefulness. The camp awoke slowly, each person shaking the remnants of the night from their consciousness. And as the brilliant light of day claimed the scene, the stars no longer visible, but not forgotten. Another memory was stored away, sewn into the fabric of their shared experience under the midnight sky. The sounds of the forest began to awaken, as if in concert with the rising sun. Birds flitted from branch to branch, their calls echoing through the clearing, while the soft rustle of leaves carried the whispers of a waking world. Someone stoked the remains of last night's fire, coaxing life into the smouldering coals. A whisper of thread smoke curled up into the golden sky, its scent mingling with the earthy aroma of dew-soaked moss and pine needles. The camp slowly came to life, each member emerging from their blanket of slumber, brushing off the remnants of a night spent beneath the stars. The air was crisp, carrying with it the faint vestiges of the night's chill. A subtle light shifted across the sky, highlighting the edges of the forest, illuminating the places where shadow met bark. The dew clung to the grass like tiny jewels, sparkling as though eager to catch the first full rays of morning. One person wandered toward the edge of the clearing, feet sinking slightly into the soft, damp earth. The forest stood like a silent sentinel, its towering trees stretching endlessly upward. Faint beams of sunlight filtered through their dense canopy, creating shifting mosaics on the ground. Somewhere deeper within, the faint sound of a brook trickled, adding a serene rhythm to the symphony of morning. Another moved towards the water's edge, kneeling on the smooth rocks to splash their hands and face. The coldness of the stream bit their skin, but brought with it a sharp clarity, shaking off the fog of sleep. Trails of water trickled between their fingers, catching the light in rippling patterns. The water flowed steadily, a quiet, determined movement born of mountains far beyond sight. Back at the remnants of the fire, the warmth began to spread, fed by careful placement of fresh kindling and gentle coaxing. Flames licked at the dry wood, sending occasional sparks into the air that danced momentarily before fading into nothingness. The fire grew steadier with each breath of wind flickering through it. The figure tending it watched it absent-mindedly, hands working on autopilot, their thoughts seemingly lost in the smoke curling toward the lofted branches overhead. The clearing transformed further as time stretched forward. Packs were opened, their contents carefully arranged, as though enacting a ritual known only to them. Metal cans and simple plates reflected the growing sunlight. The faint clink and scrape of preparation joined the growing orchestra of natural sounds. The smell of cooking soon wafted across the clearing, warm and inviting, blending easily with the forest's earthy undertones. Small movements in the underbrush caught another's attention near the clearing's edge. A rabbit darted briefly into view, its grey coat blending almost seamlessly with the forest floor. It paused, ears twitching as though attuned to sounds not even the quietest Dreamlynx could hear. Seconds later, it bolted out of sight, its presence marked only by the momentary rustle of disturbed leaves. Such fleeting moments were shared with reverence, each seemingly insignificant thread adding to the vast tapestry of the morning. Around the fire, subtle motions shifted into a rhythm. Stacking wooden utensils, passing around simple food, hammered out a rhythm that felt harmonious with the natural surroundings. There was no rush, no urgency. The morning stretched ahead with a promise of untapped time, and the serenity of their surroundings gave even mundane activities an air of significance. The very simplicity of it all felt grounding, an anchor amidst a world constantly in motion. Beyond the clearing, the forest stretched into seemingly endless horizons, each turn a promise of discovery. The trees whispered amongst themselves, leaves catching the gentle breeze as an audience to stories untold. Every step taken beneath their boughs carried a weight of awe, for this was a place where the ancient and enduring resided, separated from the unrelenting pace of the lives they had left behind, if only briefly. Though wordless, the unspoken connection between the individuals was palpable, alive in the way they moved alongside one another, in the glances they exchanged, and in the very energy of the morning shared. The forest had drawn them together under its watchful gaze, a refuge of stillness in the eternal flow of time. Each moment felt precious, carried by the light that grew steadily brighter, painting the colours of morning across the canvas of the day. The group slowly gathered around the rekindled fire, their sleepy faces lit by the morning's soft glow. Warm cups of tea and coffee were passed from hand to hand, the rich, comforting aromas adding to the tranquil atmosphere. Words were few but unneeded, replaced by the quiet camaraderie of sharing the morning's stillness. The world beyond the forest seemed like a distant memory, as if time itself had slowed to a gentle rhythm amid the towering trees and gentle sunlight. As the sun climbed higher, casting dappled light through the canopy, the group prepared to leave. Bags were packed, and the clearing slowly returned to its natural state, free from signs of their stay. With one final look back at the quiet sanctuary, they carried their memories, the sounds of the forest still echoing in their minds. It was a night that would linger in their hearts, a fleeting moment etched in the permanence of their connection to nature and to each other under that vast, unending sky.